I got some.
Okay. April 7th, 2022, 9:01 a.m. Finance and IT Committee. Call the roll.
Young,
Yes.
Alt, Bowers.
Yes.
Curtis.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
McTaggart.
Yes. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We'll move to public comments. We have no public comments. We'll move to Myron Munyon and liability insurance. Got anything for us, Myron?
Actually, I'm working with something on with Jill right now.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's the only issue I have. Do you guys have anything for me? Any questions or anything?
I don't think so.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Susie Werner.
Yes, things are going good with Blue Cross. We did have a little bit of a glitch with the claim feed going from Blue Cross to BPC. That was down for a few days, but that got fixed quickly. Things are up and running. All those claims have been processed, but other than that, things have been running well on our end, and it hasn't been too crazy with phone calls at all.
Very good.
Anything else?
Nope, thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Okay, move on. Michael Tabor, area-wide.
Morning.
Morning.
Our projects that we have signed off on are going well. The UPSs are pretty much finished up. A couple more items to finish up on that section of the project. The backup server is also almost complete. So the existing backup server being replaced and with new equipment. We're still waiting on equipment for the backup server or the failover server, and then the new storage server. So that's the projects that are in hand and ongoing right now. There is a change. I am leaving area-wide. So our other project manager, Bernie, will be taking my place, and Iroquois County will be in good hands. So we're going to make sure Bernie's introduced to everyone and has all the notes and whatnot. He's been with area-wide for about 3 years. Bernie, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Bernie McCarty with area-wide. I'm the other project manager. I've been with area-wide about three years. I take care of the other half of the clients. I'll be taking care of all clients now. I have background in, I have counties underneath my current clients, but background is healthcare, large manufacturing plants. I did independent consulting too, so been in the IT field for about 25 years. So.
Very good. Okay, thank you. You got any questions or anything, Jill, for him? Or we...
Not currently.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. Okay. Department head reports. Angel, or do you have anything to add?
No, I just submitted, no, I'm just here to listen.
Yep, okay, that's fine. Just thought I'd ask. Eric
I will
Raymond?
later.
Yep.
Different time.
Let's see. Presently, I'm hiring for one TC. Final interviews are today, so I'm gonna get that ball rolling. Hopefully, we've got a good, viable candidate. They've gone through several steps, so I'm feeling pretty confident that we should have our one after they have closed business today. Tomorrow, after the ARPA meeting, having a meeting with Addiction Recovery Services. There's some education for the TCs that are going to be made available, so we're going to see if we can get them some continuing education, so I'll have their buy-in and make them more viable when we're dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues and phone calls, so hopefully that will come through. We have our ARPA and through the county board last month, their CAD jail and RMS has been completely approved, so we have funds for that, so definitely a big thank you to all of you for working with Sheriff Percy on that. Looks like he's got a big box to show you later. So that's a huge step for all of us because of the age of the software. ETSB is also entertaining a voice over IP system similar to what the county has in the admin and in the courthouse. Sheriff is investigating a similar system, so we're gonna be looking at that. There's a little bit more to the picture on the ETSB side, because we have recordings in our 911, so there's no next generation money available for that one, unfortunately. That's gonna come out of pocket, but it is what it is. We have had a lot of problems with AT&T on the business side, since this is our administrative lines, getting support after hours, or no support at all. I called them 9, 10 o'clock at night because we can't make outbound calls out of 911, and they're like, we'll talk to you at 9 a.m. when they have a tech available. I'm like, this is a bona fide emergency, nothing, too bad. So I'm highly recommending to the ETSB, once we get all of our quotes and ducks in a row, we need to move on this. And it's kind of a really bad pain point, because we're also looking to replace our phone system in there, because that is not next generation capable. Now, that does have grant money, so hopefully here soon, probably May, June, we'll know for sure where we're going with that. We have to replace it regardless of the grant, but having some grant money in our pocket would be beneficial.
What is, I guess, the service? I mean, the ICN or whatever we're using on the voice over internet, is that what you're thinking about, or as the provider?
The ESI is the name of the phone vendor.
Okay.
And that is a cloud voice over IP. So 911 isn't going to need the physical lines. We're just needing what's called a SIP trunk, and that's going to go straight into our phone server. So 911 is going to have to, there's going to be some month-to-month costs that's currently associated to our rent. So either through management or this committee, we're going to need to talk about how we're going to modify the rent, because we're going to be absorbing our own phone costs. Either that, or if the county wants to absorb that cost, we probably need to discuss that as well. I was assuming, since they're ETSB phones, will absorb the cost, but then we're going to need to talk about the rent. There should be an expected reduction in the rent, since we're handling our own phone lines.
Michael, go ahead.
So like Eric said, so right now 911 has their own phone system and phone service through AT&T.
911 has a Nortel system. Right now it's combined with the sheriff's office. So
yes,
all of our lines are in that system, and it's approximately the same age as the one that was recently replaced within the last couple of years in this building.
Yep. So what it looks like, what will happen is, when your phone system gets replaced, 911 will still have an independent phone system, but you'll also get a new account with Rooter, and their internet or their telephone service the same as the admin building has, but you'll have a separate telephone system. But it'll be a similar telephone service, but on a different account, but a totally separate telephone system. And then the sheriff is looking to add or update their phones, but they will piggyback onto the admin phone system. So changing things up, but taking advantage of all the new upgrades of the
And they have round-the-clock service?
I believe so. And
Rooter
I don't know.
Technology, we were able to at least get a hold of them and troubleshoot something with them at late hours and off hours, so there's at least the opportunity to get some help. Area wide is also available 24/7. Might have to wait a few minutes for somebody to rub their eyes and they'll answer the phone, but somebody's there.
And Rooter was the ones that came out and provided the temporary phone system when this one got struck by lightning. So they have been very, very helpful when it comes to the phones.
And as I understand it, from Rooter, there's like one, what is it, the thing that'll break? One thing that can go wrong, and there's no more of those.
The phone server. So right now, the phone server is at admin building. So when sheriff jumps onto that phone server, if we were doing planning or worst case scenario in the future, if something happened to that server or the internet connection, then the sheriff would lose their phone calls. But all the staff has personal cell phones, and that would be plan B if there are issues with the current phone system.
And you also have access to the mobile command center, so if you were to lose phone service for any time, you'd have access to phones via that case. Now, the challenge with that is there's no recording. So if you get into inmate phone calls and stuff like that, that's a whole different animal for you to get into. But for normal business.
And the sheriff, the desk phones or the staff phones we're talking about doesn't do recording or.
They are currently recorded, and the majority of these business lines are already recorded.
We'll have to make sure Reuter knows about that.
Reuter is already over.
I've got the quote for the,
Recording module, excellent.
from Reuter, so I've got that quote already.
So we got all the ducks in a row. Last, we're waiting on a GIS. We've got a GIS flyover, which is in conjunction with zoning office to update the imagery. Again, waiting on the grant to see where that's gonna land. Again, that's gonna be sometime May, June, expected, whether we're gonna get it or not, or how much we're going to get. And then 911's also got some other GIS work that's meant for the state hookup for next generation 911. And last, the maintenance schedule and the memorandum of understanding with the CAD GL RMS was signed by the ETSB last night. So we're 100% on that now.
Okay.
And that's it.
And this GIS flyover, when would they do that, if it gets approved, or how long does that take?
We can do either a fall flyover or a spring flyover. It's up to Bob, and it really depends on when we get approval, so we can actually select the vendor and then move forward with it, whether it can go in the fall. Some of that's gonna be at Bob's discretion. I'm gonna lean on him for that because he does more with this than I do, so it's gonna be on him to really tell me what do you want, what do you think is gonna be best. But it can either be a fall flyover, once all the leaves, all the trees are down and out, so you can get good imagery of buildings, or in the spring, again, before we start getting group growth.
Okay. That it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stacy.
Financial news, EMA applied, finished an application for a hazard mitigation planning grant. We've been working on applying for this grant through Illinois Emergency Management Agency for a while now. We met with some IEMA folks March 14th, and they explained that IEMA would be taking care of the 25% local match for this particular grant, which is good news. We would have had to try to come up with that 25% as a hard match, or more likely an in-kind match with time and travel expenses. So, in short, all goes well, no expense here for Wood County for this hazard mitigation planning grant. So, after a couple of revisions, EMA completed that sub-application. The state takes all the sub-applications throughout the state of Illinois from different entities, counties, and municipalities, and puts it together as an application to the federal government. IEMA has high confidence that planning grants like ours will be approved. Still waiting for that. Once we get that approval, I have a draft request for proposal to put out for bid. A couple contractors already talked to me about that. And then we'll proceed with selecting a contractor and then start the process of rewriting the hazard mitigation plan. That process, according to IEMA, typically takes 12 to 16 months. So that's where we're at with that project, and financially, that's where we're at with that.
Good.
Financially, that's pretty much all I got.
Very good. Kurt?
The zoning office had rolled the tax up to Brian's office did their work, and they rolled to the state. So we're just waiting back on them to send us back the multiplier. So hopefully maybe in another month or so, we can start sending out property taxes. That's all I have.
Hopefully.
Oh,
So we didn't roll to the state. What we do is we have to balance the abstracts that the assessing office gives us with what they send in, which is basically printing from the same program, but it's just a double check. So then we mail the abstracts into the state, And then they use those to determine if we're going to have a multiplier, which is normally 1, which is what we're looking for. On Friday, April 1st, Bob received an email from the Department of Revenue regarding questions, and they're called the 1% questions, which are questions that they have regarding those abstracts. And normally, we mail the abstracts in, and it's about a month before Bob gets that email. Well, it was a week and a half. So we're hopeful that we'll have the multiplier today, tomorrow, maybe next week. So then we'll be able to send extension sheets out to local governments to get their sign off to make sure that their levy information is what they were asking for and that they're okay with what they're going to get. Then we get those back, and then we can finish extension and roll over to Kurt. So we are about 3 weeks ahead of time right now, which is positive, barring nothing else goes wrong. So, perfect.
That's good.
Yeah.
There's been years where we weren't near that.
Do what?
I said that I feel like there's been years where we were further behind than that in the process.
Absolutely, and the Department of Revenue, getting back to us as fast as they have is, it's hopeful. I thought, since it was April Fool's Day when Bob came in and told me that he answered those questions, I didn't really believe it, but he did, so it's kind of hopeful that we'll be in a good time frame this year, so.
I just say Illinois is not all bad.
Not that everybody wants their property taxes.
Right, right.
Okay, anything else, Brian or Kurt?
I just, am working on some physical upgrades to my office and store area. They're gonna be paid for through one of my election grants, but just wanted to keep you guys updated on that.
Okay. And Mr. Brzee.
We hired 2 deputies this month that will start the end of April, April 19th. Jessie Kokenberger was one of the deputies. She comes to us from the jail side, and she's been working with us for several years. The other deputy that we hired was Jeff McCurry. He comes to us from the Danforth area. We did hire a correctional officer for that open position. She will, it'll be Taylor Gutierrez. She's been working part-time for us in the jail for several years, so I think that's a good fit. There won't be a lot of in-house training. She will have to go through the academy, so that'll be within the next 6 months. She'll have to go to the academy. We did accept correctional officer applications. We were very fortunate to get about 12 applications. I'm looking at putting 4 to 5 part-time correctional officers on the list, so that will help ease the burden of overtime financially and for burnout for the COs. The Power DMS that I brought up to you guys last month, Jill and I sat through a Zoom meeting. We talked about it. It's maybe not something that we as the county would continue. I did talk with Ben Harmoning, who's our representative from the ICRMT. He said since we're in this pilot program, that they would really like to see us do that. They would pay for that service for at least the first year. We're not obligated to continue that. That would be a reimbursement. So we would pay for the service, they would reimburse us. And if this pilot program bears fruit, meaning if it lessens the liability for the counties and it lessens the litigations, then they would possibly pay for that every year. So that's up to you guys to say, yes, we can proceed with that. It's not gonna cost us anything to start that.
How much was that again? Or, I mean, I know you're talking about it get reimbursed, but what?
It was like 7,500 and now it went up to like 8,200 because we passed that deadline. So,
okay.
So what that does is all the policies are loaded into that, and then the correctional officers, the investigators, and the patrols, they get training through that, and that's put into their training file, which lessens the liability. because they're being trained on the policies and it's documented that they are trained on that. So.
Does that impact our insurance at all? Cause I mean, last time, I'm trying to remember back and I'm probably, the whole idea was that it would lower our liability because we could prove that we got training and all those kind of things more readily. I mean, would that impact our insurance
Well,
in the?
Yeah, and I think that's the purpose of them trying to do this pilot program is to see, how much liability we can avoid by offering this program. And I asked Clint if we could get it in writing stating that they were gonna reimburse us for the first year. Going forward, you can either choose to keep the training portion of it or not do the training portion and just keep the, I forgot what they call it. Keeping the storage for the policies. The problem that I saw with it is on the training end is basically it's how much work you wanna put into it. So, say Clint would be responsible for, choosing the trainings, uploading the trainings, adjusting the trainings, and really honestly, for $8,000, what are you gonna get out of that? Do you actually have time to do that? And we kinda went over that kind of scenario, but for a pilot program.
What's it cost
first
if we
year-
don't do the training stuff and we just use the document storage? I mean, like, is that cut the cost, I assume?
It was only like $500
Yeah.
that it went down.
Yeah.
The training.
So
portion of it.
for the first year, if you wanted to try and be a part of this pilot program, they do have it in writing that they will reimburse us for the first year. So that would be up to the committee to see if it's gonna do anything. If it does reduce our liability, then they possibly may pay for it in the future or a portion of it in the future. I think that's the whole purpose of them doing this pilot program.
To piggyback on what she said, anytime you can reduce your, injuries that would happen that they're trained for to prevent, then your modifier for your work comp goes down. You save money in the long run. Same thing goes with the liability portion of it. If you don't have any legal litigation against you for some wrong, personal suit, bodily injury sort of thing, then it eventually goes down. So everything risk control that you're talking about, the training is basically a version of risk control that's trying to prevent future things from happening, which will ultimately lower your rates.
So what were the timeline? I mean, what's the?
We can sign up at any time. It's not gonna be beneficial to us within the next month because, actually yesterday I just received the link to all the new policies that they had rewritten. So that'll take some time for Lieutenant Moorfield and myself to go through those line by line and make sure those are tailored specifically to our department. So I would say within the next 2 months, we can have these policies loaded into that system, so within a month.
And I guess if we move to this, does it, for whatever reason, we decided we didn't wanna do it, does that screw us up on how we're doing it now or anything, or?
No, we're actually kind of revamping how we're dealing with the policies, so, with this new policy rewrite with ICRMT, it's very huge.
Is there, I guess, you said there's not necessarily a timeline, but I guess, is this promotion or the pilot, or were they willing to pay? Is that?
Money is no problem with ICRMT as far as them paying for this training. Because I was on him about, hey, we need to get that letter before May 30th, and he said if it's another $1,500, we're willing to pay the extra $1,500 just to get you guys into this pilot program.
So what I would suggest is if you want to, now that you're hearing about it and kind of the ins and outs, think about it, maybe put it on next month's agenda to make action, or to take action on. That may be something you'd wanna do, because like Clint had previously said, with the new policies coming out, and ICMRT is not worried about an additional $1,500, you know, to make a decision today, you can make it next month.
Okay. Let's put it on the agenda for next month, I would say, and we'll make a decision. That sounds like it probably makes sense to do, so.
Sounds good.
Okay.
The Village of Buckley has spoken with Assistant Park Board representatives. They're interested in participating in the contract for that deputy. They've been made aware that the contract could possibly start in mid-October due to training. I am going to put the food service for the jail out for bid. We've been having problems with Aramark showing up and the quality and the service. We are outside of our contract with Aramark currently. The phone service upgrade, I do have the quotes for that if you want to see those. That's up to you. We had some issues with our portable radios recently. We had an officer get into a chase with a person, and our dispatchers were unable to hear that deputy, and that deputy was unable to communicate. So we're looking at upgrading the radio system. Just looking into different things. The second page on the handout that I put out to you, that is in reference to the Flock automatic license plate reader cameras. It's a system that I've used through investigations for maybe the last 5 to 10 years. I've had people that have had access to those, and so I've called them up and say, hey, can you check and see if this vehicle has hit on any of the Flock cameras. Basically what that does, there's a camera set up in a strategic point or points in Iroquois County, and when a vehicle travels past that camera, a photograph is taken, and that photograph can be searched by computer for the plate, the vehicle model, color, make, and any other specific things on that vehicle. Those photographs are held for 30 days. It's only an investigative search. We can't find out every person that travels through a certain area. It's not like it's, Big Brother that's out there watching. We have to have a specific investigation that we're looking into to search for a certain plate. The Kankakee County has got 13 cameras. Kankakee City has cameras. Bradley, Bourbonnais, a slew of places up north. Rantoul is the closest to the south, and Champaign has got this Flock camera system. Like I said, I know Kankakee County's got 13 cameras. Investigator Starkey is currently in an investigation that is using this Flock camera system. And without that, some of the investigation would not have been possible. We wouldn't have the leads that we would have without this system. And those are cameras up north that are catching this. We've had access to this system for about 3 weeks just as a trial run, just to see how that works. Investigator Starkey is making a lot of headway on several investigations. So Gilman has pledged to purchase 2 cameras. The city of Watseka has pledged to purchase 2 cameras, and we can also go out and ask other villages if they would be interested in participating in this with us. So what I'm asking for is for us to be able to provide 3 cameras on this system. Each camera is $2,500 per year, so it'd be approximately $7,500. I think this would definitely help out. If any vehicle is entered into leads, which is our system that tracks all the plates and any wanted people, if a vehicle is entered into leads for a homicide suspect, burglary, wanted person, or the vehicle is stolen, kidnapping, if that vehicle passes by one of those cameras, then it would show our officers where specifically that vehicle is at in real time. So I think that would definitely increase the safety of Iroquois County and assist us in working on some of our burglaries. We're having a lot of people from outside of our area, Kankakee, North, Kane County, They're coming into Iroquois County and, committing burglaries, thefts, and other crimes, and we don't know who they are. We have a surveillance video from a bar, and it may show two guys with a mask on, and they're driving a blue car. Well, with the license plate reader, we would have that exact license plate, and we would be able to hone in on that specific person. So that would give us at least a place to start.
Is that 2,500 a lease of the camera, is that purchase of them?
It's a lease. It's a lease.
It's a lease?
Yep, yep.
Can't purchase them, huh?
No.
Who sells them?
It's called Flock.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, that's the name of it. So that's the company. So, like I said, I think this would be a beneficial thing for the county, and Sergeant Starkey is very adamant that this would definitely increase the productivity of his investigations.
Where does it mount, on the side of the road somewhere?
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple different ways. They can mount them on existing poles, or they can put up a pole. If it is on a state route, they have to apply for a permit. That can take 6 to 8 weeks to get that permit approved. So that's another reason for doing it sooner rather than later. You just push your timeline back further. So
On the 3 that, so if we were to do this, you gotta do a minimum of 5. Is what the sheriff had told me, and what it says here. And four of them are, Gilman and Watsika are gonna pay for 2 each. So in theory, we need 1 just to qualify. But you're saying you would like 3. So what is there, can you tell us? I mean, why 3 is, why that's the magic number?
because we're the 3rd largest county in the state of Illinois. Yeah. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and we think 1 would be great, but 3 would get us into those specific routes and corridors that we need to be able to track. So 3.
You know where you're gonna set them up?
Sergeant Starkey has a good idea of where he wants to put theirs up.
Won't tell you, though, because you bought that. Is there initial cost to set it up?
That's all included in that cost. Yeah.
So if someone goes by one of those that's wanted, will that license plate reader then automatically notify someone, or you have to search it out?
If their vehicle is attached, if it's entered in one way, yes, it would show that, hey, there's this person who is registered to this vehicle is wanted. That not so much, more for stolen vehicle, stolen plate, kidnapping, homicide investigation.
Yeah, I mean a major crime.
Yeah, yeah. But like, I could be driving your truck, and if you got a warrant, it would show up that, Joe Young's got a warrant, but I'm the one that's driving it, so.
Okay. I just said, I told the sheriff, because he kind of told me about this before the meeting, that I think, my personal feeling is that I think in a county this big, continually adding any more head count is very, very expensive, and 1 camera being $2,500 is a heck of a lot cheaper than deputies, and probably better utilizes the deputies that we, uses the technology to make what we do have better, because no one can be in the right place at the right time at all times, and I think stuff like this probably is how the department should be managed going forward.
We could, however, that's not really our purview. Where I'm concerned with burglaries and thefts within Iroquois County. Let the state police handle the interstate. That's their deal.
Will they be purchasing them too, or do they already have them?
The state police, I'm sure they do. They're probably on the expressways. So, I guess that's. What's that?
There's a couple cameras on the state.
There are, but I don't think those are the license plate reader cameras. And I've checked into that because I've had some investigations that the person has been southbound or northbound on the interstate, and I've checked into that. Those are weather cams. So
think maybe we should talk about that when we're gonna look at some public safety money or numbers here, and I think it's kind of my personal feeling is, and if, I guess if anybody has a differing opinion, is that if we were gonna do something like this, that's kind of the intention of the public safety fund is for things like this, and we should look at it in conjunction with that. And we had further down on the agenda a discussion about public safety money and how we manage that going forward. So I think we'll continue that discussion in a second. Is there anything else, or?
I do have the CAD program bid that was received, so I can let you open that up.
I don't think I've ever had to open one.
It's on the agenda.
It's down lower.
Oh, it is on the agenda?
Oh, okay, we'll get to that.
Okay, yep.
Anything else?
We had 47 arrests, the current jail population is 19. We had 9 doctor, hospital, ER prompt care visits, 1 mental health visit to the jail. We did start the mental health hours at the jail up about 3 weeks or a month ago. That's on Wednesdays from 8 to 10. So any inmate that wants to come and see the mental health person, they can. We had 6 nurse visits, 6 public health intake exams, 1 telephone assessment with IMH for the medical assisted recovery, 1 dentist visit. There was 212 hours of regular jail overtime, and our part-time officer only had 8 hours, so a total of 220 hours of overtime that we paid out in the jail in March. And again, I was still proposing for that 10th CO for the Monday through Friday, so.
I think we got that down here too, so, okay. The next thing on the agenda was to discuss and approve the process for funding joint dispatch. I'm guessing we haven't gotten to that yet?
No, we have.
Okay.
We had indicated earlier that we wanted to get something done by April.
Okay.
It's April, so. I've evaluated 3 methods or processes by which we can do that. One of the methods or processes is what we've done in the past. Just a blanket assessment, depending on the, in the case of police, the number of officers that are in a particular area and so forth. Another method that we looked at was calls for service. And then lastly, a method was presented to me by a citizen in the county to look at the EAV of each of the different areas that an agency serves and try and come up with a way of accomplishing that. After looking at all of them and trying to get some understanding of the pros and cons, I really think that our best bet is to stay with what we've done in the past, of having a blanket rate or plan. One of the things I think that we have to bear in mind when we're talking about funding joint dispatch, the county has historically borne the greatest cost for this. City of Watsika has partnered, and I guess we've been the greater portion because of our contributions out of public safety. But what comes out of our general fund has been the same that the City of Watsika has contributed. And then we have the agencies around the county and their contributions. I think there's a lot of merit in something like that because it provides everybody a sense of participation and ownership. I think if you went away from having the agencies contribute things, it would be distancing themselves from the process, and I think that could lead to other issues and problems. But one of the things with the plan right now that we have to address as well has been with agencies that refuse to pay their fair share. And I'm not sure that that's something that we're gonna be able to have a foolproof scheme to prevent going forward, but I think it's something that we have a pretty good chance of getting accomplished. So all things being considered, that my recommendation would be that we continue that with the same plan that we've been using. And if the committee approves that and the board next Tuesday, then Amanda and I will put a letter together to send out to all the agencies advising them for what the decision is and so so forth, so. I will say that the agencies that have objected to this, to our arrangement in the past, were invited to make comments or suggestions, and we've received nothing from any of them, so. I think that's also a pattern that seems to exist all too often in any issues that come before this board where people complain, but they don't have a solution to offer or don't wanna participate in the solution.
Right. Okay, we need a motion for this?
I guess it probably would be a good thing, and then it's, we have on record as a plan that we're gonna be using in funding the joint dispatch. And that's particularly important when we can recognize that that cost increases by about 5% every year, according to the existing contract. We'll be negotiating a new contract at the end of this year. Till we get that done, I don't know what the increase will be, but you can certainly count on it being an increase. And so everybody's contribution should be, they should understand that there'll be a corresponding percentage increase every year going forward.
Right. Okay. I guess I'll make a motion that we continue to, how do we word this?
Utilize the same plan we
utilize the same plan for, funding joint dispatch going forward. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Or sorry, anyone opposed?
I abstain.
Okay.
Because I'm on the board.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Motion carries. Okay. Next on the agenda was to discuss the public safety tax plan. You'll put together some numbers on what we're spending on public safety the last several years. For 2021, these are the actuals, correct? Jill, on that?
Yeah, so the first box is the fund overview from 2017 to 2022 with the revenues and expenses. The expense breakdown in box number 2, between sheriff and the joint dispatch is broken down into revenues and expenses as well. And then, the third box shows per approved budget items for each year for the sheriff and joint dispatch, and then the total amount budgeted per year. And then underneath that, the fund 200 balance as of today is $567,255.58. I do have more detailed breakouts, but those are a few pages long, so if you're interested, I can email those to you.
So for the 2022, is that through how many months have we collected or?
Excuse me, yes, that's only through, I believe, Yvonne has balanced through, February, she's working on March.
So that'd be 3 months. So our 95, 30,000 times 12. So we're only on track. That's only 3 months worth. That's the 95,000 would put us on track for 380,000 this year, which is, I don't know if we spend more, but there's more sales tax dollars in the summer. Or?
I think we see more in the summer.
Yeah.
Generally,
because that would be significantly down.
Yeah.
I think every year it looks like in 18, 19, and 20, the public safety fund had brought in roughly $430,000 each year. Last year, it was the highest at $500,000 that we brought in.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, we're on track for only 380, but if it has seasonality to it.
more than likely it's gonna end up around that 425,000 mark.
Okay. And as a result, like she's already mentioned, we have an ending balance, or a balance in the fund as we speak of 567,000. And how much more do we have budgeted to come out of that 567?
Budgeted for this year?
Yes.
Well, the sheriff has budgeted 200,000 for vehicles, which we have not received yet. So we have not paid for those yet.
Okay.
And then
Sorry,
the joint dispatch for salaries, they were budgeted for salaries, subsidizations, for, any additional costs at 120,000, and that has not been dispersed yet either.
So if we get back up to 425,000 by the end of the year, as far as how much we take in, we add that to the 567 that's there now, we'd be at 900,000 minus 320,200 for the sheriff and 120 for joint dispatch. Our ending balance would be 577 at the end of the fiscal year.
Is safety tax limited to sheriff and dispatch spending?
How does it read? I can't remember, but I mean, I think it's.
That's the one problem I see. Whatever the county board decides to do with it, it's safety related.
Safety related, public safety related.
Repairing the highways is safety related. The word safety, to me, could be used about anywhere.
Sure. And I guess that's what we're trying to decide is, right now, 300 and, for this year, 320,000. Last year, we spent 375,000 between the sheriff and the sheriff's department and, giving it to joint dispatch out of roughly 425,000 that we bring in each year. So
There's some left over to spend in other places.
there is, yep. And I think
I'm
one
not
of the
saying
reasons.
it shouldn't be.
No, I agree.
I'm
I
just saying to
understand.
actually where we are.
Yep, understood. And I think one of the things that Donna has been talking about this, to her credit, and I think she's right, that we need to look at these numbers and decide what the vision of that is. I think to your point as well, is that how do we spend this money? And I think her point has always been, Donna's point, she's not here today, but I'll speak on her behalf, because she's told me it 15 times, is that we need a longer term vision to put money to the side in case we need a jail someday or whatever, that we're not, okay, we bring in 425 every year, we don't want to spend 425, maybe we should be putting 100,000 or 200,000 off to the side to be for a rainy day fund, even for public safety issues. And then to your point,
Can't do that. I believe the state constitution prohibits that. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. So I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the state constitution prohibits putting money aside like that. The state constitution prohibits it.
it's.
If you put it in the general fund, and your general fund gets built up, that's your rainy day fund. And
I
that
guess,
would
but
be what you do.
we have
And if you-
567,000, then
can't-
we're
you
technically
can't
breaking the rule
establish-
by your comment. But
No, you can't establish a separate fund.
I'm not saying establish a separate
I
fund.
mean, but I mean, in a private business, you would have a separate fund for.
I think the bigger point is that we don't need separate funds or any more accounts. It's just that, okay, if we have just assume we're always gonna bring in 425,000, what is the plan, the board's plan to do with that 425? And if some of it's to build, at the end of this year, we should be at 577. Our vision is to build that up to $2 million over the next 10 years. I don't know, whatever the number is, then having more of a direction than we randomly spend this money.
Well, that's where I differ
Yeah.
with Donna, because she's talking about the jail with it. Separate fund set up for a future new jail. I think there should be a fund separate for it, long-term improvement like a jail.
You can't do
And a
that.
jail, you can't do that at all?
I don't believe you can, that's something you
Well,
have
how do
to
we
talk
go
to.
about building a jail if
You have
they,
you have to
they say we
verify
have
that
to?
with the state's attorney, but I don't believe you can do that.
How do we make an improvement like a jail then?
Well, I think one thing that a lot of counties have done is to issue bonds to pay for the cost of it and then pay off the bonds.
Well, maybe that's what we should be doing, issuing bonds. Whatever it is takes to build a jail, I think we ought to get started on
Find
the
a wealthy,
savings plan.
find a wealthy donor like the Cliftons to donate money for it too. That's
sorry.
how we got where we are right now.
I don't think we need a jail today. That's not the point. It was more of the vision of, I'm not saying,
I think
that's
we do
Donna's
need a
comment,
jail.
but
I would say that Donna's comment has merit, I wouldn't disagree with it, I'm just saying I don't think that we're authorized or legally able to do that. It's something we need to verify, however, with the state's attorney, because don't take my word for it, but that's what I've been led to believe in some of the other activities that we've been involved in over the past number of years.
and I don't know that Donna, again, I'm speaking on her
I
behalf.
know that on capital improvements, if we set out at the beginning of the year to do some capital improvements at the end of the year, any money that's set aside for that purpose automatically goes into the general fund. We can't keep it in the capital improvement fund. That much I know for certain. That's, again, that's a state statute that covers that. So I think that's something that we would have to verify. I don't know if there's anyone else in the room that has any knowledge of that part of it that wants to speak up. But
As it is now, if we were told we need a new jail, we'd be starting from scratch.
we'd have to issue some bonds to pay for it.
I don't even know that Donna's major point was the jail. I mean, that was the example she would always give.
Right.
I think it was more of, we need a plan in general of how this money's spent, because spending every last penny of it maybe doesn't make sense in the event of, whether it's legally or whatever, or maybe some other project, or a rainy day issue for the sheriff's department, joint dispatch, whatever it may be. Her suggestion was more of, we need a plan. As an example, if we thought we needed to put money aside for a jail, as one example, then that should be part of the plan, if that's where some of this money would go to. I don't know that we should, I guess what I'm getting at is, I don't know that the focus needs to be 1,000% on the idea of a jail. That's just an example of, okay, we need a plan. And
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay.
If I could just interject one other thought. I think there's a lot to be said for the way we've administered that money so far. And I think going forward, we need to keep that same concept in mind, because there are special situations that develop seemingly almost all the time that we have to find money to meet. And we relied upon that fund to accomplish that, and I think it's worked well. We're looking at this year, we're looking at negotiations with all three unions for new contracts. With the inflation rate that we have right now and the state minimum wage and other factors like that, I don't know that we can accurately forecast what our increases are gonna be for wages. We know what they are right now, 5% for joint dispatch and for the deputies, and maybe it'll stay there, but it could be a lot, it could be more. And I think that's, something we don't wanna get caught short at, but we may be required to put more money into joint dispatch to meet some of those requirements. We may be required to put more money into other parts to meet some of the requirements that some of these increased costs are gonna present to us. And that's one thing, we haven't seen the full impact of this inflation right now.
When you go by over in Gilman and you look at the truck stop over there and you see all the huge number of trucks lined up there and they fill up their tanks, they're spending thousands of dollars just to fill up their tank. Who's paying the cost of that? That's gonna be reflected in the goods that we go to the stores and purchase. All of this inflation comes back down on the consumer. And in a sense, we're a consumer. All the goods and services that we have to avail ourselves of. So if we don't, I'm just saying that there's an area there that we don't really know what the impact is gonna be. Certainly doesn't look like it's gonna be good though.
No. Yes.
One question that was answered, and I really appreciate Jill providing this information. Mr. Alt had asked, I think it was last month, how many deputy salaries had come out of the public safety fund since its inception. And by Jill's figures, there was only 2 deputy salaries. That would have been in 2019 through the entirety of this public safety fund. I know when this was put out to the people, it was for more deputies and more patrols. So as we can see here, it's only provided 2 deputies for 1 year. It has provided with the vehicles, which is definitely assisting us in our plan. So I just wanted to keep that in mind.
One thing about that though, Clint, that you need to recognize when you say that it was put out, that was put out by a former sheriff who had no authority to do that. He had no authority to commit the county board to how they're gonna spend that money.
That's correct. That's correct.
And he wasn't authorized by the county board to do that. The state statute on public safety money is very clear as to how that money can be spent.
By the county board.
And that's what we have to go by.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know that, I think we just need to leave this on the agenda and maybe we can, I guess, the whole point was we just wanted to start talking about this and get the numbers in front of everybody so they can see where we are spending money and all those kind of things.
We've got budget hearings coming
And
up.
we got budget hearings coming up and get it in front of everybody so that we can think about those things and all the issues that were brought up, which are all valid and good and.
That's what we need to get it started in our minds at
Right,
least.
so at least we're looking at it and looking at the history of it and figure out what we're gonna do.
It's gonna be very hard to go into budgeting, in my opinion, because some people will be thinking about inflation's going up 17% right now.
Yeah.
That means we're gonna have a more income sales tax rise.
Right.
But
And property
how
taxes.
much? Because people are gonna tail back on what they spend when it goes up that much.
Sure, agreed,
So it's gonna be a shoot in the dark to drive at a budget figure.
for sure.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't
No.
talk out of turn like that.
No, it's fine.
I think things like this are really, you get a lot of mileage out of this for what it costs. I think that's what the public expects out of some of those public safety funds. So I think ideas like this are.
I would agree. I agree with what you said, and I think what Joel's referring to there is the, what do you call it?
I don't think I've read that. What is it?
It's
those
the
cameras
flock,
we just
the
talked
camera
about.
thing.
Oh,
Those
the camera
cameras we
stuff?
talked
Camera.
about.
I think, to me, that the more technology, it's no different than all the automation stuff. I wasn't really here, but we automate and do things in the recorder's office to make things easier so that it's less paper intensive, which causes less people. That a lot of that work's been done here over the last, I don't know, before I was here, but 10 years or whatever it is, you tell me whatever, and that's, in the long run, it costs the county less because it automates things that were typically took people to do. And I think, to me, the camera thing is that for the sheriff. I mean,
Give you more than pay for itself.
yeah, a couple. Just, so I guess we need to, first things, I would like us to keep talking about this public safety as we move towards the budget, and at least we got numbers in front of people and we can keep those discussions going because as we move towards the budget, because it is a big part of that.
I think when it was instituted, when voted on, people took it, it was gonna be spent in the police department, I
Sure.
admit that.
Sure.
And, but it wasn't really agreed by the whole board to put it on the ballot at that time, so you got a battle started right away.
Absolutely. And I think if there's other, obviously that's the most logical one, and the what direction that all the spending has gone between there and the joint dispatch, but if there's other ideas, I guess we need to hear them, you know, I mean, that would fit in that realm and consider them, and all taking John's points into consideration, because the inflation thing is gonna be real. Or is real, and will probably get worse before it gets better. Okay.
Hope not. 17.5%.
Okay,
It's enough.
I guess while we're, maybe let's, related to public safety, and if someone disagrees, that, I'm just putting it out there just to get the conversation going. This Flox system, the camera system, my feeling was that would, if we're gonna do that, if the committee decides they want to do that, the public safety would probably be the natural place for that to be, because that's the intent of, I think, to Joel's point, when people, when Joe, sorry, that's what people thought they were getting when they voted for a public safety tax, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And so the sheriff is proposing, we have to do a minimum of 5, but 4 of them are being sponsored by Gilman and Watsika. The other, I guess, what is your feeling? My feeling is that, and I told Sheriff this before the meeting, that's why I was coming in late, was that if, just like Gilman and Watsika are willing to put these out there because they feel like it's gonna help make their community
That's where
safer.
the traffic is.
That's where the traffic is. Probably putting them in the middle of nowhere, correct me if I'm wrong, is not the most likely place. It would probably be on the edge of a village or in a village or something like that. And I guess out of those 3 that you're requesting, and if you guys have a halfway idea of where they're going, do you think we would have any traction getting a village, if they're near one, to help foot those 3, or these are more outside of that realm?
I mean, keeping in mind, Kankakee County has got 13 cameras.
Yeah.
We would be looking at 7 cameras initially.
Yeah.
And I would like to build on that system by going to the
To the
different
villages.
villages.
Okay.
And, you know, I think this is going to make a big impact in other, all areas in the county. So, you know.
And you brought up to Walmart, I'm not
Yeah,
say they're doing anything, but they've done these things before, and some area businesses you thought might be interested in sponsoring some additional cameras beyond what we're talking about.
So there is a private side of this, a private business or an entity, and that's all in the information I provided, can purchase a camera, and that would be under our system. So when we met with the representative, he said that traditionally Walmart has money in their budget to pay for one of these spot cameras, or at least one on either entrance, because they have so much traffic.
Is this a naive question, or cameras, do they work in the dark as well as in the day?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So that could be something simple as K&H, they would like to have one in their parking lot for fuel thefts or other thefts. They could sponsor one. So, Flock has a dedicated team that will go out and look at some of the larger businesses in our area, like Walmart, and they will,
Parking lot would be.
they will help us out with that. So if we could do the 3 initially that the county would pay for, and then we would build the system out, not at our cost.
The 2 that Gilman is gonna purchase and Watsik is gonna do 2, who has control over the location and use of those cameras?
We do.
You will? They won't have any say-so where they go?
Well, I mean, we're gonna pick the spots based on our investigations and what we think is the proper place. You know, Flock will have a lot to say about that too, because they know from their experience in their business and putting these cameras up, that this is a better spot, this is a better angle to put it. So, Yeah, we will be in control of that system. Our side of it.
With their input, I mean, they're gonna, or no, they,
No, the reason I'm asking is because if they are the ones that control where they are located or are operated in within their village, then what you're asking for outside of the villages, there needs to be some coordination there or whatever, but, the policeman in force in Watsika has gotta have some use of that system for their
Oh, yeah.
own purposes.
Yeah, I mean, Watsika is on board with joining in with our system. So, I mean, we're gonna work with them to put the cameras in the best possible spot. I mean, we're not gonna put them out in Timbuktu, like you were saying. We're gonna put them in the best spot that we think we're gonna have the best chance at getting these good photographs.
I just think it's important that we understand who's controlling all the different cameras.
at the end of the day, it's your final word, but obviously with their input is what it sounds like. Otherwise, they're probably not gonna pay.
That's kind of what I figured,
Sure.
but I just think it's important.
Yeah,
that we
to say it.
understand
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think, yeah, then we could, if someone wants to make a motion to do this, then.
I move we go ahead and have Clint get the 3 cameras for $2,500 a year a piece. And use public safety tax funds to do it.
Do we need to say anything about the other 4 since they're technically under us? Is that reimbursed or?
It would be reimbursed.
Okay. And then
I mean, we're not really liable for those, but.
Yeah, so here in the Clint's proposal, it said request board approval to enter into an agreement with the city of Gilman and city of Watsika for payment. Maybe we should say it's 3 plus 4, to go with 7 in the public safety in addition, and then add that on to the end of it. So we're gonna approve 7, but then have
In partnership with Gilman and Watsika,
who will reimburse us for the 4.
Now, can I ask, is this coming out of public safety for 2021 and it has not been budgeted out of this? So is this a time sensitive thing? Is this something we should wait till budget time? Or, because we do have 4 vehicles we're expecting, correct? Just taking a look at budget numbers. And we can amend the budget at a later date, but it's something to keep in mind. I'm not at all opposed.
No, I know,
Sorry,
no,
put the finance out there.
You're fine.
I think with the limited amount of, it's $7,500, it's not 75,000. I think with that limited amount, we would be close to the budget.
Okay, something you can work with, and then, like I said, we can amend at a later date, I just wanted to put that out there.
Fair point, yep. I think given the amount and probably that we just do this one this year, because to Clint's point, they're working on investigations and there's 8 weeks to get the IDOT to approve where you put them and all those kind of things, and all this stuff just lingers on here. Okay, so
for this budget year.
for 2022. So what exactly is the motion then?
It's been changed a couple
Okay.
times. Do you want it changed? Do you want to?
That we purchased 3 cameras along with Gilman and Watsika, each purchasing 2, for a total of 7. The funds to come out of the public safety.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Alt. We need to take a roll call.
Young?
Yes.
Alt?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
McTaggart?
Yes. Okay. The next kind of thing was discuss and take action on the hiring of a correctional officer. sheriff spoke about this last month. I don't know the years, because I wasn't here at that time, but what was it, in 2010, we had, or prior to the layoffs and the letting go of people?
Yeah, 2010, we had 10 correctional officers, one of those being the jail administrator. That position was let go once, I think one person ended up leaving, so we were down to 9. Lieutenant Moorfield has been basically covering the jail administrator job, so we've essentially saved that $55,000 that the jail administrator was getting since 2010. We've not been paying that position. Lieutenant Moorfield's just been doing that as a part of his normal duties. So, I mean, you guys can see in the amount of overtime that we're spending, 220 hours of overtime. This would not eliminate that. I mean, that's on every shift. But as I had in my proposal earlier, or last month, the average cost of the day shift overtime in 2021 was almost $71,000 is how much we spent. And it would cost almost $40,000 for another CO. So, you know, we would save that in overtime just of that one CO. And again, just the liability issue with when one of the COs goes over to relieve the court security, and that leaves just one CO at the jail, they cannot, by county jail standards, open any of the cell doors, even if someone were to slit their throat, commit suicide, do anything, just for the safety of the building. So just in case someone were to rush them once they open the door, we've had one escape several years ago, and that's how that happened. So just the safety, security, and the reduction of the liability is where I'm at with having the Monday through Friday person that would also help with the transports, the medical transports, and keep our deputies on the road as opposed to taking somebody out to the emergency room where they can be patrolling instead of sitting in the ER with some guy for 4 hours.
And I should have done this before, but I asked Jill this morning, has the overtime hours since that, I guess, let me put it this way. When they got rid of that person back in 2010, obviously the intention was we were trying to save money, right? And now, when you look at how many overtime hours we have, you can pretty quickly go, okay, we're spending more in overtime than it would be just to have another person. And there's some of that, like you just mentioned, probably can't be eliminated, overtime hours, just because of the way the world life goes. But has the overtime hours significantly increased from that time because of, I mean, either somebody screwed up royally in 2010 when we did that, because it didn't save us money, right? Because if we're paying more in overtime than it would have been to just keep the guy on, then it didn't make sense to fire somebody.
Well, just going back to give you an idea, the system we currently have for accounting, only allows me to go back to 2012, so for 10 and 11, I'd have to go do some digging, which is fine, I can do that. I
Sure.
just can't do it on
Yeah.
a few minutes notice.
No, that's fine.
But to give you an idea, I ran the correctional office for overtime from 2012 to 2021. On average, it's about $58,000 a year is what they're spending on overtime. Again, we're kind of estimating 2010 is when they decreased officers, so I can do some more digging, but just to give you an idea, on average, $58,000 in overtime cost is what they're.
Has it been going up over time, or?
You know, it ranges, we went from 51,000 as high as 76,000 in 2016.
Some of that might have to do with people leaving and stuff.
Right, going back and forth, and that's what I'm working on now, is just the average of the officers we've had for a year. I've gotten 13, 14, 15, and 16 done, and there was 11. And that includes part-time, but, Of those 11, 2 of them are part-time, so it would have been 9. So they've had 9 correctional officers and 2 part-time on average.
I think there's 2 aspects to this. One is the safety concerns that you brought up, which I'm sure are valid. The other side is that if we can eliminate the cost to pay for it, I mean, eliminate overtime that would pay for this person, then financially it would make sense. But my worry is, not discrediting how important the safety aspect is at all, that the reality is that we might not save all that money in overtime just because the way, I'm sure we'll save some, but there's just how the system, how it works, that somebody's gotta stay over an extra half hour, that isn't gonna be eliminated, or an hour here or there, or whatever, or 4 hours, or whatever it might be. There's no way you can eliminate all the overtime, I'm guessing, from what you're saying.
Human frailty is going to result in overtime for somebody, not yourself, maybe for somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, and understanding that, and I guess, I think I would like to have Jill run some more numbers like that we were just talking about, and looking at our head count, and maybe go back to the last couple, we almost, I can talk to you more about this afterwards, but we almost need to normalize it for wages too, because the dollar amount isn't necessarily relevant, because $50,000 in 2010 salaries is a lot different than $50,000 and 58,000, whatever you said the average was in 2022 numbers, and we probably need to look at it. We can normalize that so it's taking the wage inflation out of it, or whatever, but I'd like to look at more numbers like that. And my opinion, and if someone disagrees with me, but would be that I think these are the kind of things we need to do in the budget. And I think the safety concern and probably the overtime savings are all valid points, but the cold hard reality is we only really can see, it's hard for us to see the whole picture of where we're spending money and doing all those things, except for during that time of year when we're going through that budget process, and it's very close here, as Charlie pointed out earlier. And I think what I don't want to do is, I think all the points you bring up are valid, but if we were to fire somebody, there would be a lot of deliberation, and if we had to start eliminating positions, there would be a lot of arguments on this board and in the community if we're firing people, and that might string on for weeks, months, whatever, before the final determination was made, would be my guess. And we probably ought to take the same time before we add people, and I know there's cases where we haven't always done that, but it just seems like we should put as much effort or consideration and deliberation into hiring somebody as what we would if we were firing somebody for the exact same reasons. And I, beyond that theoretical thing, my worry is, to John's comments, and he and I had a conversation after our meeting last month, is that this inflation thing and where our salaries are all going, and last year the budget almost went together too easily as far as I'm concerned. We were almost within earshot of being balanced on the first rendition of it, which is the first time since I've been around that we were ever that close. And my worry is this year it's not going to be that way. and I'd like to understand where we're at on all those, so we don't have some issue and then we go, uh-oh, we already made this decision, and make sure that we're considering everything all at once would be my recommendation, and wait till the budget and keep this on our radar for that. And in the meantime, maybe Jill can next month look into those overtime numbers and some of the financial impacts of the things beyond the safety issues related to it.
I'll work closely with Jill, and I appreciate your consideration. So, thank you.
Anybody else have any thoughts, or is that?
No, I kinda like that plan, although I'm gonna have to drive through the ditches now and miss your camera.
Take the barber paint and paint your license.
You can't right now. I've put a number on there. Every
That does that topic.
7 to a 9.
We'll leave that, I say we leave the correctional officer on for next month.
Catch on.
we'll leave the correctional officer discussion for next month, and maybe we can go over some of those numbers as we head into the budget season upcoming.
One question I
Yes,
had
sir.
on the correctional officer, and that is what the role that the part-time guys play, is that?
Yeah, can you talk about, that is a good point. I mean, for 220 hours of overtime only to get 8 part-time, is that more a function of the contract and that they get first pick at it?
Some of it, yes. Some of it is the availability of that person to work those hours. So, I think we had like 12 correctional officer applications, and we did interview a couple of them. There is about 5 that I would like to put on as a part-time officer. One of those is one of the people that's on our deputies list. And one of the reasons behind that is just to get him in the jail setting, see how he works, you know, that makes the decision of hiring that next person that much easier.
Sure.
So just like we hired this Taylor Gutierrez, she was our part-time officer for the last couple of years. It was a pretty easy decision because she has been doing a great job. So with adding 4 or 5 part-time officers, that gives our normal COs a break, because, you know, working 12-hour shifts all the time. And honestly, that schedule from April to August, September is pretty much red. I mean, they're working 12-hour shifts every day of the week, so.
Do these 4 or 5 that you're, I mean, did I understand earlier that they're all interested, or
Yes.
that's pretty much a
I've
done
already
deal?
approached them to ask if they'd be interested in doing part-time hours. The only thing we gotta do is get them pants and a shirt. We don't have to do any specific training as far as go through the corrections academy with them, but we will do some training with them in-house. So yeah, we should be up and running with those within the month, and hopefully that'll be a good thing for us going forward. It's gonna reduce the amount of money that we're spending because it's a $15 an hour versus at least a $19 an hour brand new CO job.
Sure. Well, and hopefully it'll help with some of those overtime hours too, or more than the 8 we had, or, yeah, go ahead.
Are these part-timers new to the staff or part of the staff?
New to the staff.
Okay, so
Yeah.
like Champagne is getting for the weekend type help?
I honestly, I can't speak to that. I don't know what that is,
I
but,
can't see it, it was in the news back, somebody
Okay.
told me about it, I don't know the details.
yeah,
either.
these are part-time correctional officers. You know, one of them.
Correctional officer, I'm
Yes.
talking about, down there was the deputies, I believe,
Yeah, I don't-
working on the weekends when the students are not
Okay.
in class or something like that.
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but
No union problems with it?
no. The only thing is like you alluded to, the overtime is gonna go to the union correctional officers first, and if they don't want it or wanna turn it down, then it's given up in 4-hour blocks, so. I would like to see more of it go to the part-timers, just to give our people a break though.
Well, that'd be good, hopefully that works. Okay, so we'll keep that on the agenda, the correctional officer, additional correctional officer item, and talk more about the numbers hopefully next month. And then if we're done with that, then we'll go to open and take action on the bids for CAD software, so.
Give the Joe, he can put these files.
You're already planning on driving through the ditches.
Well, what am I gonna do? I thought another way is changing every 7 years.
These are the same, I think. Central Square. Any clue where I'm supposed to be looking here? Or what do
I would probably start flipping to the back. That's usually where they have it, unless they've got it marked right up front. They're usually pretty good about that. So if it's not right after the table of contents.
Page to go
Yeah, right. You're thinking all the best stuff.
Yeah. Quote.
Is that the fence all wired to the sea station? Is it cameras all directed to the police station?
Okay, the jail,
Total price,
jail and financial, do we need to do it? There's also a mobile.
probably all the way to the back.
Okay, there you
It would be a, 256.
As a reminder, in your approval of this, you've also got a portion of that that's coming out and going to the ETSB. I don't remember the exact amount, but it's close to $38,000.
Yeah, so the ARPA funds approved for this, was 219,000 change, plus the $38,000 from the ETSB. So the total, came in under the amount that was approved, so.
The quote total is $256,231.11.
So you'll make your motion to approve the entire amount. Sheriff Brzee and I will get the invoice for the ETSB to reimburse the county back for their portion of it.
Okay.
About the recurring fee charge.
Recurring fee is,
Is that included in the 256?
The year two maintenance that we discussed at the ETSB meeting is not gonna be included in that because we won't know what that exact number is gonna be until year two is billed. There are reoccurring fees for the mobile portion of it, if I'm not mistaken, Sheriff?
I think that was all included, if I remember right, in that
Doesn't talk
maintenance.
about reoccurring in there, I apologize.
yeah, there's a recurring $36,574.45 left.
For the maintenance.
Okay.
I thought you said that was
Yeah.
included.
Yeah, that's,
Oh, no.
no, that is not gonna be included, that's gonna be,
That's actually less than what we're paying now.
so that'll be,
That's what we split, and the sheriff pays 15.
Yeah, we split
we're
that
paying
up.
close to 20,000 of it, and then the rest of the special sheriff,
Yeah,
a little bit more than what we originally discussed.
I don't know.
How much do we pay for, Jill, for the CAD,
It's about
Software.
$1,600.
you know?
It's about $1,600 per quarter. So it's about 66,000 something. So your responsibility did go up, and that was anticipated. It was like we're paying 27 and you're paying 10. If you need it, I can run back to my office and grab you the exact numbers if you need it.
Here.
Yeah,
No, this
okay.
is what we've agreed on.
That's the 27 on it.
So 37,393.
Yeah, that's about right. I think it's a little shy of that.
Yeah, so that's actually cheaper than what was quoted.
It's roughly about $200 cheaper.
Okay.
Well, they call it first year maintenance, and I had a discussion with their sales rep, because sales rep is the same across the board for us. They call it first year maintenance, it's after the end of it, so once we go live, it's usually about a year, that's when we're gonna pay that first year maintenance. So I'm actually gonna see that, I'm kinda happy to see it's a couple $100 cheaper than what we were originally quoted. But you won't, none of us will see that bill until a year from now.
All right, then we need a motion to approve the amount, approve the quote.
So I'll be looking for the county board approval to proceed with signing the contract up to the amount specified in the ARPA application and a CAD bid received along with the ETSB's portion.
then I move to approve the quote from, what's the right way to say it? I never do these ones. Approve the quote from
Accept the bid from
Accept
Central
bid from
Square,
Central Square.
and then I don't know if you wanna add any of his language into
And
it.
what was that language?
It should be on the first sheet that I gave you, under GAD.
Okay.
There we go. So accept
And
the bid
request,
and the-
and request for county board approval to proceed with the signing of the contract up to the specified amount in the ARP application / cash rate received.
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Hughes. Take roll.
Young,
I'm going to abstain.
Alt,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Curtis.
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
McTaggart.
Yes. Okay. That's done. We move to claims.
Unless you want.
Is there anything noteworthy on the claims, Jill, that you had, or?
Jill's not in.
Oh, she left us.
Estelle.
No, it's fine. Judicial committee, they didn't meet?
They did, I think these
Oh, or
claims were
after.
turned in after the deadline, so they come to finance.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about the claims? If not, we need a motion to approve them.
I'll do that.
Seconded by Joe. Take a roll call, please.
Young,
Yes.
Alt,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Curtis.
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
McTaggart.
Yes. Okay, do we have any old business? Or new business?
Well, the PUP committee made up recommendations for the county board for the salaries of the sheriff,
Okay.
treasurer, and 2 clerks, right? We don't have to deal with that until budget time, right?
Right. Well,
Next Tuesday,
we'll have to approve it at the full board.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
has to go before the board. We have no input on it before it goes to the board.
I guess so, yeah.
Anybody can
Voice their opinion then? Okay. Any other business? Yeah, we'll have a motion to adjourn. Second, Powers, all in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.